My name is Dr. Karma Corcoran. I'm an enrolled citizen of the Chippewa Cree Nation, and today I have my friend Tosha Big Eagle with me. She's not only a friend, but she's a sister, and thank you so much for agreeing to spend a little time with me today.
Thank you for having me.
If you would not mind introducing yourself and who your people are, I'd so appreciate it.
Absolutely. So my name is Tosha Big Eagle, and I am from the Hunkpathy Dakota tribe of Crow Creek, South Dakota. I am a direct descendant of Wamdi Tonka, Chief Big Eagle, and he was part of the 38+2. So he was incarcerated by Abraham Lincoln and held at Davenport for many years until eventually he was released. Of course, forced to assimilate, give up his, take on a white name, give up his faith and his wives, and started a long line of intergenerational trauma and incarceration in my family. We have about 6 generations of us that have been incarcerated. I'm also, with that, I should say, a long line of resiliency as well.
Thank you. Yes.
And hopefully we will continue resiliency and healing for the next generations. I'm also a descendant of Irish and French ancestry as well.
If you wouldn't mind, if you could share a little bit about your experience of incarceration in the sense of what you were charged with, how many years did you serve?
Sure. So I did 2 incarceration times. Both times I was charged with drug charges. In the state of Washington, manufacturing and delivering is combined.
Okay.
So, and with that, and that could be you're delivering, kilos of whatever the substance is to $5 worth of a substance.
Right.
And you get charged as, it's a person-to-person crime. It can be considered a violent crime because it's combined with manufacturing. And because of that, it's really harsher sentencing. So the first time, I should preface that with, of course, my grandmother was at the same institution, not with me, and then my father was also in the system.
Interesting.
And in my town, there's not a lot of indigenous people. My last name is Big Eagle. It's fairly well known. And my father experienced a lot of racism within the justice system, within the jails. So when I got into the system, they already didn't like me.
Absolutely.
And I was sentenced to the high end both times. In fact, I thought I was taking a low end, and I was in sentencing, and the judge said, "Do you know your sentencing range?" And I said, "Yes, 20 to 60 months." So taking a 2-year sentence, I thought I'd never been in trouble before.
Right.
And my attorney leans over and says, "Oh, I'm so sorry. We got your sentencing wrong. Really, it's 12 to 20 months. And by that time, I'd been in jail, and I wanted to see the sky, I wanted to see the air, and so I just said, "Sure, sentence me," because I wanted out of county.
Right.
And I did 13 months at Pine Lodge Correctional Facility over by Spokane. I was 22 years old. I was pretty angry, still really in my trauma, a lot of childhood trauma, a lot of abuse and addiction and mental health.
Right.
I joined up with the sisterhood there. Unfortunately, we were all pretty in our trauma. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a lot of healing that happened, and the DOC was not supportive of our sisterhood.
Okay.
So where other spiritual groups were given more funding and I would say religious leader support, we were not. We were given roast beef lunch meat and pregnancy packets, so peanut butter and graham crackers when we went to sweat.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was, no, the only thing I would say is that for powwow, the local tribes got involved. So we
Right.
did get salmon and fry bread for the powwow, but anything else, it was
Which is once a year.
correct.
Yes.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
for the rest of the year, you're just supposed to
Yeah.
do without.
Right. We took our roast beef and we would heat it on the rocks.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
And so then you went back in.
I did. So I got out, still angry, but wanting to do better. And my father, who is Dakota as well, overdosed and died next to me from methadone. And I felt the amount of grief was insurmountable. And I felt responsible, like I could have done something. I didn't know any about it, but I just felt like,
Sure.
like I could have done something. And I relapsed on heroin about 2 months later and very quickly landed myself a 10-year sentence
Wow.
for delivery of heroin. And I went into the judge. My part of my plea bargain was I couldn't ask for any kind of drug sentencing alternative. I couldn't ask for help. They wanted to give me 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And the range is actually 10 years is the highest. So they wanted to give me an exceptional sentence of 20 years.
Oh my goodness.
And I was covered in track marks. My whole body was bruised. I pled to the judge, and I had letters from my family, saying that I really needed treatment. I needed my community. I needed my family. And he said, I'm going to give you 120 months, and hopefully you get treatment when you get out.
Oh, wow. And I think you bring up a couple of really good things that people need to know. One, we're traumatized already. Prison is more trauma.
Yes.
There's no way around that, no matter who you are. Also, the fact that these sentencing laws, which, depending on the state, that judges have a lot of discretion, and to say, well, in 10 years, hopefully you'll get into a program, and that there are not truly drug and alcohol programs in prison, and frankly, there's drug and alcohol use in prison, and drugs come in lots of different ways. And so, and judges know that. And so it's almost like punishing a person in a double sense of withholding treatment, withholding healing.
That, and my particular judge lost one of his children to opioids. So,
And that's another really good point about the justice system. And we can all try in our own lives, and I was talking with a brother earlier today about, and we spoke about this between us too, about, when we're serving people that have committed some rough crimes. And we have to be able to step back and say, this is painful, this is hard. The crime that was committed is just horrific, but we still have to be able to step back and serve. And the bench is always affected by their own lives, their own belief systems, and you would think that the bench would be required to step back and maybe even recuse themselves if the person before them, is so close to something that happened in their own family. So I think that's something for the public to really think about.
yeah, it definitely impacts.
Yes.
everyone
So when
involved.
you were in that second time, was that when you really began to access culture, Native American healing services? What did that look like for you?
So I had accessed culture in my childhood. My
Okay.
maternal grandmother was very involved in Indian education here, and we went to powwows, and just my whole life in teaching me, our customs and traditions. But my own choices led me away from it.
Yeah.
And then, and of course, I'm way far away from South Dakota. So my own people and what their healing ways were, I was not directly exposed to. My grandma was Comanche.
Right.
So it was different.
Yeah.
When I got inside, this is almost humorous, the words on the wall are rehabilitation starts here. That's what you enter into the women's prison, and it says, which does not happen. There's no rehabilitation. And I got into the prison in 2010. And this is important for Washington because at that time, laws and policies were passed for budget cuts. And they specifically cut our education, our mental health, our food, and for Indigenous people, our religion, our access to religion.
Right.
So we had, you couldn't go to a one-on-one therapist, groups were limited, they took away any kind of higher education access. There was vocational and technical programs, but beyond that, nothing. And then, nothing healthy to eat. We were getting bags of food that were boiled. And then we had no access to medicines. We had no sisterhood. We had no sweat. We had no powwow.
Wow.
We had nothing for 2 years until a nonprofit community, Hoyt, came about, and they brought it back into our prison. And that's when the first thing I remember, Winona Stevens and Minty Long Earth coming in, and they said, almost in a general action way, what do you need? What do you want? Like, how can we help you?
Oh, that's so good to hear. I mean, it really is.
Yeah. And I don't know that I would be here today if it wasn't for the services that I got then. I mean, we were all traumatized, continuing being traumatized by incarceration, trying to find our way, navigating, the ways that we bicker as Indigenous women. But even still, just that community that we had, that shared experience, was impactful.
Yeah. And so then when you got out and you were at Clark College in Vancouver, Washington, tell us a little bit about the program that you started and what made you decide to do it?
So when I got out, it was not the easiest road for me. I had family support, and I had housing through them. But I had no way to get my own housing because nobody wanted to rent to a drug dealer. And I had no rental history.
Sure.
My credit was horrendous. I had no employment history. And so I really didn't have an option but to stay with family at that time. And I couldn't get a job. Nobody, fast food really didn't even want to hire me. I applied many different places, and they said they would hire me. And then in Washington, deliveries,
Sure.
you have a lifelong ban on you. You cannot work with children. You cannot work with the elderly. You cannot work with vulnerable adults.
Wow.
And my family had given me money to go become a CNA, and then I was told the night before I was going to start I couldn't do it, ever.
Oh my goodness.
I couldn't even be paid to help care for my grandparents, which was what I was doing. So I did it for free out of love, but it was, so there was many different challenges. And when I got to Clark, that happened because I had my beautiful first baby, and I realized that at my restaurant job, I made too much money to get any kind of services. So I didn't get food benefits, I couldn't get childcare, I couldn't get anything. And I wasn't connected with our local tribe at the time.
Right.
And then I didn't make enough money to afford anything.
Right.
So I was eating lunch somewhere, and I came across a professor who said, you need to go back to school. And unfortunately, there was another barrier. When I was in addiction, I had a significant other who committed a theft at the college in my town.
Oh my.
And I got banned because of it. So I couldn't go back to the school that I had went before. And I was investigating Clark College, and they had a really great addiction counseling education program. So I was looking into them, and I went to a WorkSource function and found out about Workforce Education Services, or WES, and that they had first of all, a reentry program.
Wonderful.
So they had someone specifically there to help guide and give resources to folks coming out of incarceration into the higher education system, because most of us, first generation,
Yes.
poor, minorities of some sort, and with all those intersections, we had enormous barriers, and higher education was not built for us.
Ever.
So the challenges right out the gate are huge. And so this position really was meant to help guide us, and get us to be to that diploma, or to that degree. And I got to Clark, and I realized there was a lot of justice impacted folks.
Wow.
Okay, of reentry folks, not just people that had been to jails or prisons, but people whose family had, whose loved one had.
Sure.
And then we realized that, we needed a safe place, a place where we could come together for community, to share resources, to talk,
Yes.
I'm having this challenge because I've been incarcerated for 10, 20, 30 years, and I don't know what a Google Doc is.
Yes.
I had no clue what a Google Doc was when I got out. When I went in, Apple One, or whatever it was called, was coming out. So it was a whole new challenges.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's really hard to, one, reach out to somebody and say, hey, I don't know this, or that they're going to understand. So originally our club was called Reentry, and now it is Justice Impacted,
I love that.
because we as a society are all justice impacted. We are, as a community, impacted by it. And so everyone is welcome
Oh,
to
that's
come.
wonderful.
The community is welcome. Anybody is welcome to come into our safe space and be a resource for one another.
That is fabulous. And I think it's unique that everyone's welcome. And I'm going to, I assume there's guidelines because you used the word safe. And so if I come and I've not experienced incarceration, there must be things that are required of me to be a safe person in your safe space. Is that correct?
Yeah, so confidentiality.
Oh, okay.
Confidentiality, because it doesn't matter what you did in your past.
Okay.
We all make mistakes, right? And I am a very firm believer that the people who have caused the most harm to themselves and to others need the most resources.
Yes.
So we need to have they need the most healing. We need the most healing, right? And we're not here to judge people.
Right.
We're here to say we're happy that you're in this place here today. What can we do to help you? What do you need? Right?
And that must be such a different feeling, because I certainly have people that reach out to me, and frankly, in the Portland community, it's often difficult, depending on the crime that you've committed, to be in community, in a circle, whether you're welcome or not welcome there. And I think, too, it's difficult to personally feel welcome when you do feel the judgment of others. And I just also feel like it doesn't help a person come to terms with what they need to do for their healing, for themselves and for their communities too.
Absolutely. And one of the things I do for formerly incarcerated individuals is, and with the Justice Impacted Club, write letters for them, letters of recommendation. I have a lot of friends who have charges that involve children or violent crimes, murder. And I strongly advocate for them, especially for those who are, who have admitted their harm and are working on, have healed, working on healing themselves and their community.
Right.
Because I think they are in the very unique position to be a resource for others who have those crimes, right? Who've experienced, I don't like the word crime, who have experienced those harms.
Yeah.
And be a source of healing for them, be a guide for them. And I do that and speak on resentencing committees, discussing, it's very easy in incarceration to not work on yourself, to not heal.
Sure.
So individuals who do, that's huge.
Yeah.
So that's some of the work that we do as well.
Thank you so much. And I think it's so important to acknowledge the work that you do and the fact that as someone who has experienced this, you're able to provide services, community, in a way that those of us who have not will never be able to do, because we haven't been there. And so thank you so much, sister, for all that you do.
Yeah.
And I know you and I have a lot of work to do ahead, but, and I also want to share too that you're working on your PhD, and so excited to be your academic mentor, and can hardly wait for you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, darling. Thank you so much.